们今生注定是沧桑，苦之来。
Hello there. As you guys can see, the room is a little bit more packed up than last year. Okay, yeah, maybe not fully packed up yet, but yeah, I have been working on it. Bit by bit, we are slowly changing it up such that while it is still like a cacophony of a lot of different things going on in the background, it's a little more orderly and you guys should be able to see more stuff other than just a stack of books going up in the background. Everything else, it's kind of hidden from sight right now, but here's hoping that over the year I can slowly also increase the amount of decorations here so that, you know, it might be more interesting for you guys as well. But yeah, once again, I'm going to need to pull out some of my time wizard magic powers and record this video on 2 separate days. The part that you're watching now is the first part that I recorded on Saturday, the day in between the first and the third day, which are on Friday and Sunday respectively. In part because I didn't manage to get the ticket for all 3 days, I only managed to get it for the first and last day. So if I want to get the video out next weekend, I kind of need to ensure that I try my best to do it on a schedule that actually makes it possible for me to do it while working a day job. So recording the parts that can be recorded on Saturday will mean that when at the end of Sunday, because you know, end of the weekend, everyone is getting depressed as they slowly have to go back to work and all of that, I can just ensure that I just record the small parts that remain and we can just get everything out on time. See? Efficient and brain functionable. I don't know what it was meant to be about. But yes, I'm back on the first day of the Fes anniversary. I'm sure some of you have already watched the live streams that have been up since it's been about an entire week since then. There were some things that it was kind of interesting that they did quite differently from the previous anniversary and some things that were done quite similarly. So unlike the second to third where you saw a very big jump both in the quality as well as the scale, with the fourth one, some things kind of remained the same. You could really feel like they were just refining some of it, and some things that were just executed a little differently. So things that were done similarly to the third anniversary, frankly, it still boggles my mind that they're still choosing to use Chiba instead. I think we checked it out on stream a while back, as in me with some of the people who were on stream, and it really was the case that obviously it's gonna be cheaper. But the fact that on the last day of the fest, there was actually a doujin event for Blue Archive happening in Big Sight in Tokyo, and the official event was happening in Chiba, make me feel like, why couldn't they just do the same thing at the doujin like the fan creators themselves are doing? But hey, maybe they had other plans in mind as to how they wanted to ensure that everything could be easily covered price-wise as well, so that's why they chose to put it there. The rubber band entry ticket thing that they use is kind of the same as last year as well, which I do really like still since it makes for a very nice collection item as well. You can see most of it here, hopefully, if the camera is focusing. That and the 3D model booth things are back as well, and I always found those to be kind of cool since those models aren't actually used within the game. It's typically only used on their social media, specifically on YouTube. So the fact that they're actually expanding the number of models and that, which I think this time they also did expand it quite a fair bit, was pretty interesting to see, and it's kind of interesting to see that they actually plan new scenes for all of the models that they had actually prepared before for all the students as well. That said, when it comes to the big differences this time around, there's first up the fact that the event this time was 3 days long. So yeah, it was actually from Friday to Sunday. And I guess this is probably so that more people could participate, since it did seem like many people were bummed out that they couldn't last year. And this time around, the tickets were actually 1,000 yen higher than last year. So for those of you who are wondering, 1,000 yen is about this much. It might seem like a small amount, but you have to remember that the yen has been crashing for about a few years now. So it looked really cheap. It ain't cheap for us over here. And this is in spite of the fact, and this is the third point, is that the venue this year is actually smaller than last year as well. And this is something I talked about with some people on stream as well, where the event this year is something that they actually use the same location. This year it's also in Makuhari Messe in Chiba. However, the halls that they actually selected this time around were different, and as a result, the event, I think we calculated with the 4 halls that it had, were actually smaller than the total size of the event halls plus the external area that they used for the event the last time around. That said, when it came to the event being smaller, this was something that I feel like maybe this is just me having a very different opinion on it, but it was something that I was not all that negative about. Some people being like, it's over, it's all gone, that is, it's just like not really worth it to go since it's smaller. But personally for me, it's like, as someone who enjoyed the second anniversary with how small that one was, like, I think that event may have been less than the fifth the size of the third, and even for the fourth anniversary. So to me, it's not about the size that counts, it's just more about how you use it. Which, yeah, overall, it didn't feel as grand as the third anniversary in the sense that when it came to all of the big displays that they were putting up the last time around, which if you're wondering about what displays I'm talking about, like the balloon statues for example, you can, after this video of course, go watch the other video for the 3rd anniversary, and you can probably get a sense of some of the stuff that is different. But in spite of the fact that the scale wasn't as grand, it still actually felt really fun all the same, and arguably I would say that while it is less grand, the way that they used the space afforded to them was a lot more efficient this time around. And so even though it was smaller, it didn't really feel like anything was missing per se, and it didn't feel like I was getting less out of the event. In fact, it was still the case that by the end of the day, I was still surprised by how fast the 13 hours that I had spent preparing for all of this actually went by, if anything. And when I say that the space is used more efficiently, a large part of that also came from the fact that 2 of the locations this time around, which were the food corner as well as the official goods store, both of those were actually brought indoors instead. This is compared to last year where they were both actually located outside, with the official goods store being the car park of the convention center itself. It was still sheltered thankfully, so you basically had them just setting up a bunch of tents there, and you just lined up outside in the winter cold while queuing for the goods instead. And for the food corner, it was located in a small plaza-like place on the outside, on the opposing side of the building. But the thing with that plaza area is that it wasn't actually sheltered that time, and so on the second day, because it was only 2 days that time, when it actually rained, it basically meant that you had to queue in the rain with like a little umbrella waiting for your food in the winter cold. So it ended up being a very terrible experience queuing up for both of those, precisely because of the fact that you actually sat outside in the cold shivering the entire time, and in the worst case on the second day just getting drenched in the process as well. Which this year they actually brought both into the building itself, and not only that, the food location was actually put fairly close to the stage, which logistically I feel like this is a very good design, just simply because of the fact that it gives you a little more entertainment while you're waiting for the food, since there isn't really much to do in the queue. And if you're eating, at least you have something else that you can do instead of staring at your phone, which would be a little difficult to do since you didn't really have a table to put all the stuff down on, since it's just seated. The official goods store, which is themed after Angel 24, which is the little shop within the game as well, the convenience store. The last time around, it was actually just a bunch of tentage put up outside the building, but this time around, they also moved it in. They placed it in a convention hall instead, one of the smaller ones they had rented out. And overall, I would say that it actually looked a lot better as a result, since they actually lined the entire wall of the convention center with like wallpapers to basically give it the vibes of the convenience store within the game as well. So you basically had both the decor on the outside to make it look like the convention center, and you also had like little TVs on the outside of the hall itself to basically give you the vibes, as you had the character who's basically manning the store there just talking as well while you waited the queue to get into the hall itself. Within the hall is a lot more simple. You just had glass cases in the middle displaying some of the goods, trying to make it look fancy, although the fact that you couldn't even get close to it meant that you can't really get a good look at what was there. It really felt like it's just more to give the vibes of a store with the display cases in it. Then on the walls on both ends of the hall, you basically had a giant projector screen where they were just playing a scene for the convenience store that they had recorded for this event using a 3D model which they had also prepared for the characters. And that was also pretty cool, just the fact that they actually went through the additional effort of not only just modeling the character but also setting up the entire scene. I did find all of that to be pretty interesting, and it really did give you something to do and watch while you're waiting within the queue as well. Overall, I would say that logistically, they did a much better job with using the space to ensure that the people who came for the event will be kept as comfortable as possible for as long as possible, while also having some level of entertainment so that the time within the queue doesn't feel as boring as well. The only thing that felt really crazy to me was just how fast people were getting into the queue for the store. Like, they did have a digital queue system, so you actually had a number on a ticket that you can actually look at to refer to when would be a good time for you to head down to the store to start queuing. And the thing is that I actually got in fairly early. I think I entered the hall around 9:20. I actually went to queue about 2 hours before the event started since I didn't have the express ticket. But the thing is, at 9:20 I got in the hall, I got the ticket, and it already said that I was like the 2,200th person in the queue. So I don't know how many people were on the express ticket, but that made it kind of rough. And the thing is that it feels like with some of the items, they really just didn't prepare enough stock, especially the Kisaki ball. That one actually, like the meme one that everybody was so excited that was finally there. I think that went out of stock within like less than an hour of the event actually opening at stores, so that one was just really unfortunate. And the queue system that they have been using online, not online, but on the application line, really did feel like it helped a lot in mitigating a lot of the wait time, since instead of just getting a queue number or walking to a queue and waiting until it ended, you now basically got a digital queue number, and you could just use that to refer to when to get into the queue. And even if you got there late, it didn't really matter all that much since they would still let you enter, so you could much easier manage when you were in the queue. And I feel like that also helped to mitigate how long overall people were spending in the queue, as you could probably enter the queue only when it started to matter. But yeah, the way it worked this time around is that you basically had on the pamphlet for the day, which is split between each of the individual days, so you actually had a different one for each of the day, including for the queuing system as well, which you would then use to go online, to basically get the queue number that you needed, which was nice because it basically meant that overall you just had more time to just walk around and have fun and explore the venue rather than spending it in queues. So overall, it did feel like time passed a lot quicker compared to last year, and I feel like part of that is just due to the fact that I had a lot more ability to spend time just walking around the event venue and just having fun instead of spending it waiting for queues for a few hours instead. But yeah, for those who are wondering, this is what the entirety of the pamphlet looks like. You have the specific day that the pamphlet is from. You have some of the goods listed here as well for the goods store if you're interested. On the back, you also had the food selection at the food corner, as well as the itinerary for all of the stage events for each of the individual days, as well as the details for the stamp rally that you had to do as well. Then on the inside, you basically had the map for the entire venue listing out all of the different activities that you could do, as well as all the different stores and displays that were up within the location itself. Being a veteran of the 3rd anniversary as well basically taught me one very important thing, and so 9:20, the very first thing I did when I got in was I scanned the QR code while instantly walking straight for the food corner. Not because I'm some hungry, gluttonous fuck or something, but more because after last year, I was so traumatized by the fact that I had to spend close to 2 hours in the queue for food only to reach the end of the queue and have no food left because of the fact that the queue starts to get really bad by lunchtime. I decided to just run straight for the food store this time around, buy all of the food that I could get my hands on for breakfast, eat a heavy breakfast, pack some of the food, especially since they had a sandwich thing as well for lunch, and then just basically go and do everything else after. And then with this thing, I basically set up the online queuing system for both of the other things that required a reservation this time around, which were the store and the photo taking area. So the thing with the food though is that it was expensive, but overall I would say it wasn't too bad. Don't get me wrong, the prices are double of convenience store food, so it's really expensive compared to cheap food, but in terms of the quality itself, I feel like it isn't really comparable to convenience store food. I would put it a little closer to the food you will get in like kitchen cars or like bento places instead. So depending on those, some of them can get to prices that are fairly close to these, although 1,100 yen for fried rice either way isn't very worth the money. I feel like fried rice is typically fairly cheap even here, so I would expect that even if it came from a kitchen car, for example, it would be like maybe like 700 yen tops. So still fairly expensive, but not too insanely expensive. It's just that the quantity of the food felt like it was very lacking as well, and that was what made it feel kind of overpriced if anything. For example, with the fried rice, like don't get me wrong, like I'm glad they added a little image in there and all, but the quantity of the fried rice would have been maybe about half of what I would expect I would get if I went to like a chain like Chinese food place or something. So the fact that the quantity was a lot lower as well did make it hit a little harder how expensive some of it was. Although it did come with the coasters, I guess, in the end, so at least there was that. That said, for the coasters themselves, they actually weren't really too bad. Like compared to other coasters that you typically get from all of these collabs that like to give out coasters because it's something easy to make, these actually felt fairly thicker. Like I'm holding them in my hands now, and like when I try to like push down on them a little to see how resistant or thick they are, these are actually a lot thicker than quite a few of the other smaller collab coasters that I've seen before. Although yeah, the art style itself is a little reminiscent of last year's fest as well. I feel like maybe that was intentional, but I do like the style of the art and the font. I don't know why, there's just something about the font that they use for the text on it as well that just hits me a little different. You got one of these each for each item on the menu that you purchase, so the more you purchase, the more you had a random chance to get one of these. I was actually kind of lucky since all of the ones I got didn't overlap for some reason, even though I don't think they actually know what we get when they give it out, unless it's like each store has a different item, which I don't know if that's the case, because when I went back the third day to actually get it, it would seem that the items were already different. There was one thing that I feel like on stream as well, we were memeing quite a fair bit when they did announce it, which was the blue archive water. And so, for the sake of the content, I figured I would do the thing where I'm like, I brought the blue archive water so you don't have to. Because yeah, like this tiny ass bottle over here, right, as you can see, I mean, overall it looks kind of nice, like the plastic wrap on the bottle and the way it is bottled. But the thing with this is that I think this actually cost like 400 yen, which was I know that like inflation has been a thing here, but this is a little too high even for the inflation we have going on. I feel like this is probably the most overpriced thing that they had going on. And the worst part is you didn't even get a coaster when you purchased this. You literally just got a bottle of plain water and like that's it. No coaster for you. You can get one for everything else, but just not for this apparently. Like goddamn man, you know, it's like if you're gonna like price it like this, you could have at least made it like some like waifu bath water or some like I don't know what the fuck degen water you guys might want. This was a very bizarre thing. It feels like a way for them to just squeeze money out of people. Now you know what the experience of purchasing this thing is, so you don't have to buy it if they ever do it again. Don't do it. I don't know why I did, to be honest. We already knew that it was just gonna be plain water and I still went to do it just for the funnies anyway. But yeah, the eating area itself actually looked pretty nice. It was like a very festive Yakiako theme instead, with a mini Izuna altar as well as something for the Hyakka-ryoran with the nice looking wall scroll going down the middle, and in the middle of that there was just like a shadow Michiruchi like little exhibit thing going on as well, where you just had a shadow of her running across the screen while she was just talking in the background. Then all the while in the middle you just had this really long like festival tower thing. I don't know what's the best word to use to describe it, but typically in like major festivals for like summer and the like in Japan, you just have a fairly long tower from which quite a bunch of lanterns would stream down, and with this one you basically just had that going through the entirety of the rest area, which actually looked really nice, especially when the lights went off later on. I don't know, it feels like it did give off the whole like festive theme of both the event as well as like what Yakiako was supposed to be as the school, like festivals going on all the time there. So the area itself was already pretty well done, so like just sitting inside eating, just looking around it the entire time was also fairly fun. And with the stage being right in the direct view of the eating area as well, it actually made the entire like eating process, or I guess the eating within the resting area process, feel like fairly enjoyable still. Like you didn't really have to whip out your phone and do something else in the meantime. So the order I went in was basically food, then the official goods store for Inja 24, and then after that was the photo taking area that they had the last time as well. It's basically like pre-kra except for weebs to take the pictures that people meme with them like doing this with their waifu instead. So they did have that this year as well as a little like anniversary thing you could do. I know it feels a little cringe. Some people would remember the old like early 2000s thing with the guy going like, "This is my waifu, do not steal," and then like all of that, and it's just like but you know, it's a funny like memorial thing that you could basically do for free at the event. I was like, yeah. Funny thing with that is just that if I recall, I actually did see some people try to scalp it online on Mercari and the like, where instead of actually taking a picture, they just like had the picture of the person there and then they just stepped out of the booth instead and let it take a picture blank, and then they just tried to sell that instead. It actually felt kind of brilliant that they even thought of that in the first place, like the lengths that people go to try and recoup whatever they could like try to like get out of the event and scalp as much as they could. But yeah, like nah, that's not for me. If you're gonna cringe, oh baby, you know that we're gonna go all the way with it. But yeah, overall, as with last year, this year as well, they did actually give you both a physical copy of the thing that you took. Here's the one I took on day 1. As you can see, I'm being really cringe there. This is just like looking at my old like chuny photos from back in the day when I was still like a little chuny as well. This is the one I took on day 3 as well. Overall, they actually had fewer booths concurrently running for this thing as well. I feel like maybe it's about 50% to maybe 75% of the number of booths that they had concurrently running the last time around. But even in spite of that, it really seemed to move really quick. Like when I entered the queue at the time when I was supposed to go, I think I actually got in within less than like 10 to 15 minutes, which basically meant that the queue was just moving rapidly at the time. I feel like maybe this is just because of the fact that, especially on day 1, there were just way fewer people because it was just a standard weekday. So students who weren't trying to skip school to enter the event and adults who didn't want to take a day off to go for it would probably have not been there, so it felt really smooth on day 1. Day 3, it was a little slower, but overall, even then, it didn't really feel as long as it took the last time around, in spite of the fact that it was smaller, which is part of why I feel like the event just felt more efficient in that sense, where because they had experience doing all of these things that they've also done the last time around, they could manage it a lot more efficiently to ensure that people got in and out fast enough that they could just ensure that the people weren't spending a lot of time in the queues for this. 2 words of advice, I think I gave those advice the last time around as well. Don't wear green because there's a green screen behind you, and make sure you are prepared before you push the OK button to select the character, because you only get 10 seconds to prepare, and if you don't, you're gonna look like me, like a dope last year when I took the thing and it just came out looking like this instead. But yes, with that done, I then went on to do the quiz stamp rally thing. Basically, they had a quiz stamp rally in all of these events. Sometimes it can help you to notice things that you would not have otherwise because of the fact that it forces you to take routes that you might have not considered. As someone who kind of likes stuff that's a little old-fashioned in this way, like stuff like this kind of little activities that you have to do and run around the hall physically. I know for us gamers, some of us are very unfit. I'm not one of them, clearly. I'm a god gamer with a big muscle man with a very healthy, active lifestyle and clearly not sitting in front of a computer all day long. You also had a QR code on this thing that you basically had to scan, the one I mentioned before. That was over here, and it will set up the page which would then display the map for the day, and you basically have to go to the point, scan the QR code at each of the individual 12 points, and once you do, it will trigger a cutscene thing on your phone, which this time around, instead of doing that same style of like having it be like a message chat, it was actually done like an in-game cutscene instead. So it did feel like it fit more into the mood, and in a way it actually worked out a lot better, since with the chat thing that they did the last time around, it didn't feel very immersive this time around because you could have a bunch of people on screen at the same time talking, not just to you but with each other as well. It felt like overall the entirety of the way the scene was done felt more immersive into getting you to both enjoy the interactions between the characters as well as the festive mood of the event in a way as well. But yeah, after the cutscene plays, you're then asked a quiz question by them. You can fill it as many times as you want, as they ask you questions that are related to the lore of the game. Some of them actually really bizarre. I won't say hard questions, that you can actually just check everything within the game itself, but it was things that were so niche that you wouldn't think about to begin with, like how many books was this character holding in their hand in their original release, and it's just like, my guy, how the fuck was I supposed to know she was holding 10 books? You think someone's gonna sit there and count every single book and be like, ah yes, I see that she has The God and the Antichrist by Sir Dix-a-Lot. Ah yes, that was my favorite book. And look at the number 9th book. Ah yes, it's the red hat and the yellow ham. Like no one's actually gonna do any of that shit. So yeah, like stuff like that, it was kind of funny in the sense that like when they ask the question, it would just make you go like, the fuck are they asking? Holy shit. And you just take out your phone and you just check it. It's like, yeah, it's actually not that tough. So they did balance it really well, I feel like, in ensuring that the questions are things that might be difficult or seem difficult on the surface. But if you play the game, I mean, which you probably do if you're going to pay 6,000 yen to go for an event like this, you can very easily check it within the game itself, and I feel like they did a fairly good job with ensuring that you could do that. And the thing is that for some reason, even the ways that they like faded in and out, the character models move across the screen, all felt like faster and sharper, in the sense that maybe it's just my brain processing the stuff that goes through the browser in a weird way, but it's actually did feel higher res than the stuff I actually remember seeing in game. So that was a little bizarre. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. But yeah, once you get all of the 12 different stamps, puzzle pieces, you would then be able to open up the puzzle page, and you actually had to do a proper like solve the puzzle sort of thing, where you had to move the thing around the screen and solve that. The funny thing is I also forgot that you actually had to do it before getting the queue, so I got in the queue. I went all the way to the front and like, bruh, you need to solve the thing, and I was like, shit. And I got out of the queue, and within like 2 minutes I solved it. I had to re-queue the entire thing again, so that was a little silly. But once you solved the puzzle, you basically got both of these stickers. Yes, these are just stickers, like you can peel off the thing on the back and just like stick it wherever you want. And apparently they gave out a different sticker for the upper one, I believe, every single day. But overall, it didn't feel too bad. Like just because of the fact that the entire event was located indoors and the crowds were handled a lot better, I feel like I didn't really spend a lot of time getting jostled around by people within the event space itself. It made it fairly easy to get around and to scan all of the QR codes for all of this. Plus, due to the fact that the overall venue net was actually smaller, it means that getting around to scan all of this was a lot more bearable. Like, compared to the second year was even smaller than this. So with that one, it really was the case that it was too small to the point where the QR codes were so close to each other that trying to scan everything basically meant that you would get through it fairly fast, and that there was a lot of congestion in the hall. This time around, it felt well balanced tokens enough between the two. So I actually found it to be the most enjoyable of the 3 times I've been forced to do this at one of their fests so far. After that, I went on to the capsule corner, which is where you had basically the little like real life gachapon machines, because this was located at the far other end of the hall and I didn't really want to walk back all the way there just to do this a second time after like completing the entirety of the stamp rally thing. So while there for the stamp rally, I basically went to go in and give that a look as well. This time around, it felt like they actually did the logistics for this a lot better as well. I remember the last time around, they basically had 2 separate queues for the actual rolling of the gachapon and one for the exchanging of money, where you had to actually exchange cash for coins to be able to play the thing. So there was a lot of weird logistics with that because people would go in with different cash denominations and some people didn't even have enough cash on hand, and that basically like caused a lot of congestion there. This time around, they actually changed it up such that instead of using directly cash in the gachapon machine, they would provide you with a token, which you purchase the token from a counter within the hall itself. And this time around, you could actually use credit for it, so you could actually just like swipe a card if you actually didn't or aren't the type of person to bring around a lot of cash like a boomer like me would. And this time around, instead of just the 4 counters that they had last time around, they actually increased it by more than double. I think there were about 10 this time, so you were able to actually get into the queue and get through all of that a lot quicker than the last time around, since the rate at which people were being processed to get the tokens was a lot quicker as well. They limited the purchase to 5 tokens each time you got into the queue, so I only went in once as I was only there to mostly do the other thing, and so I only rolled 5 times. I have the thing right here with me actually. Unlike the last time around, this time they actually have like a little logo on the capsule thing itself, so I actually brought a few of these home, in part because I didn't want to open it just yet. I wanted to do it on stream, so that we can, not stream, on the video, so that we can all be surprised together. Also, I realized that this thing's really hard to open, so I didn't want to waste too much time at the event hall itself trying to open it, since like... Jesus.
Yeah.
Did it. And it only took like 2.5 minutes. Yeah, they had an entire new set of the acrylic keys this time. But on top of that, they also did bring back the acrylic keys from the last time around, so you basically had only 5 tokens, but you could choose to use them either for the new set or the old set. I feel like it would have been nicer if they actually gave like different tokens for both so that you could actually get both for there. Especially for people who missed it out the first time around, I feel like they'll be more than happy to roll for both for some people, but yeah. Oh boy. We still have 2 more to open because I kept 3 of them to open on stream. On the video. Save me, chat. What the fuck? This one opened like instantly. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Kobe!
Oh shit. And the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't know what was with that first one. It really seems to be an issue with just the first one. So we actually did get a dupe with this. We actually got 2 of the Atsuko ones. That's nice for people who really like her. Though I really don't have any complaints, since the 2 that I did one, I actually did open on the venue itself. Like out of the 5, I think the first one opened was actually I have it there, so let me go grab it real quick. Yeah, I got the one I wanted in the very first one, so I was quite fine with it. And then I also got Kayoko, so... But yeah, aside from that, the Gachapon area itself was also fairly well decorated. You had both the full CG art banners that were set up all over the hall there. You had the wallpapers on the pillars to the entranceway to the hall with all of the SD chibi art for the characters on it. You had a full-on acrylic version of all of the SD arts as well, just lining the walls into the entry into the Gachapon area as well. And to begin with, the lobby area that the Gachapon machines were in was already quite fancy. I think that that area felt a lot more like a hotel lobby, if anything, or a reception area for a much bigger hall. So overall, it actually did look really fancy, both because of the decorations that they had up and because the hall itself looked very modern and well decorated as compared to the main hall, which looks a lot more like something like Big Sight, where it's just a big hall for a convention instead. Next up, I went to the memorial area, which this is kind of like with last year where they also had one, where it's basically just them putting up all of the CG key visual art for each of the events across the years that time instead. But with this time, it's specifically the key visuals for 2024's event, so you walk through it and you basically see the main CG art that they had for each of these events, just lining the walls in chronological order. It felt really nostalgic walking through and seeing all of it, and to be honest, a lot like last year, I was really just quite surprised with how high res all of those were to begin with, because there really wasn't any pixelation whatsoever, in spite of the fact that these images, which you typically will only see on your PC screen or on a mobile phone, were basically being blown up to almost being maybe double my size, and yet there really wasn't any pixelization much on it at all. And if anything, because of how big it was, I actually managed to see details on this art that I never really realized up till that point, especially when compared to looking at all of this on the phone or on a very small live screen. And I really enjoyed the walk through that quite literal memory lane in a way. Although I do feel like the way that they were handling the queue there was a little iffy, since there was a lot of starting and stopping, so you would walk through like maybe a few panels and then you had to stop while waiting for them to clear the queue at the other end, so the tempo itself felt a little off because of that. But once you got through the entire lane at the very end, they actually had a collage for all of the key visuals and like YouTube thumbnails that they had done for the first 3 years. So you had a small room just completely lined with all the different art there. And I really enjoyed that because of the nostalgia it gave me, because it really did have everything from like year 1 events to all of the events, key visuals for all of the different fests that they've done across the years, all of the Akihabara stamp rally and all of that. So overall, I really did enjoy the sense of nostalgia it gave me, and the reminder that this game is now 4 years old, which basically means that I've wasted 4 years of my life doing everything in life, I guess. So just another 4 years older, another 4 years closer to my grave. Yay! Go me. Yeah, aside from that, there were also 2 game activities this year, both of which were more skill-based in a way, in the sense that if you were really good at doing the thing that was required from the game, it would be fairly easy to pass. And even if you sucked, if you knew someone who was really good, or there were enough really good people within the crowd, you could just follow them around and you could more or less win every single time. So the new ones this time were basically the Millennium Math class thing and a patrol minigame with Ichika. So the Math class one was actually really simple, or rather, it's very simple to explain, because really all of this is just doing speed mathematics. Basically, numbers would flash on the screen, and then you basically had to look at all the numbers and just do an addition of all of them. Very, very simple. Like that's the entire game. Number flash, you look at all of the numbers that flash, and then you do a mental sums to add all of them up and try to solve it within like 5 seconds. Very little time, but if you were good at math, it actually ends up being fairly easy. So for those of you who don't know any law about me, who actually care at all, I work in game design with a focus on level balance as well as like game balance and economy balance and stuff like that. So basically a job which requires a lot of doing calculations to begin with to ensure that everything more or less works towards the end goal that the game has in mind. Plus, I'm Asian, so needless to say, no, there is no punchline here. I aced it every single time, alright? And here's the proof, right? Did it 3 times day 1, as you can see. Full set. 3 full sets, because I'm just that good of a god gamer. This is what I had to deal with the final round for this thing. And I did that successfully all 3 times. I'm very happy about that. Shows that while the dementia might be sinking in, I have not fully succumbed to it just yet. Anyway, where were we again? Anyway, for a full set, this is what you basically got out of it. It's a set of postcards. Basically, you got a full set of these if you actually won the entire minigame. And if you failed at any given point, you would only get 1 of these randomized. So, yeah, pretty cool to actually get the full set. There's only 3 in here. Really like how they just have so much like new key visual art used for the event itself. So also, according to the 3D model of Koyuki and the scene that she has when you actually watch the 3D model scenes that they do, she said that she couldn't clear this at all. So this does mean that I at least have greater math prowess than a super hacker, although we are talking about a super hacker with a brain potentially the size of a peanut, so take that how you will. But meanwhile, the other game was one that I found to be a lot harder, mostly because it was a game that was focused on observation skills. So basically the way it worked is that the event is themed off the train event, the Trip train from like 2023. And what you basically had to do was that on the screen for each round, they would have a train room, and then the characters walk in and out of the train. And you basically will ask questions based off what you observe within the individual train cabins at a time. And this can range from everything from like how many people were seated as people were moving in and out, or like how many characters from each school were there and stuff like that. It was overall not that difficult to begin with. Like sometimes things would like hop in from the corners of the screen, so you had to really pay attention to catch everything that happens. The only issue is that as someone who gets very easily distracted and who has like some issues with like memory stuff as well, it does feel like it's a lot harder to like get a grand scale like looking with like through your full vision at the entirety of the scene. Stuff like this. Maybe I may have like some small brain issues. I actually have never got it checked out, but like this one actually ended up being a lot tougher for me, and as a result I think I only succeeded it like twice in 5 tries. If you fail, basically you only got the same one ticket every single time. You basically got this collectible card that basically is modeled after an old train ticket. It's always Ichika in case you're wondering if you fail, and if you succeed in the entirety of the thing, you basically got a full set instead, which has 2 instead of 1. Not a lot, but yeah, you basically get the Iori one, this one over here, for succeeding the entire thing. And you only got it for succeeding the entire thing, which really made it really difficult to get this one, if anything. Also, one thing that they did that I really like with these games is the fact that they were using the in-game chibi SD models quite a fair bit. So the thing is that basically they would do a like rule explanation, and then the characters would like banter with each other on the screen, and all of that would be done with these 3D models. I really like that. It really is a shame that they don't actually put up any of this anywhere, because I feel like it's actually very well done, and you don't really get to, even in the game, see like these character models used in like daily interaction ways where they're just like talking to each other and like just moving around rather than just the usual battle animations instead. So it's kind of a waste that they didn't want people taking like recordings of those as well. Yeah, aside from that, activities wise, there's only one more thing left, which is the VR experience. This time around it's with everybody's favorite horny cat, who seems to progressively get closer to the thumbnail with every single video she's in. Yes, she's doing a good job with the VR experience this time around and getting very close in a clearly not sus way once again. Really feels like she's gonna cause some of the people in the crowd to go like, wait, no, stop, I'm a virgin. But yeah, when it comes to the VR experience, there were people who actually were saying that it was actually so good that it actually brought them to tears, and I can kind of see why, especially if you really like Kazusa. It is one of those things where with how they actually did it, I feel like, to be honest, if they managed to improve it going forward, this whole VR experience, and if VR tech becomes more accessible, especially at home for everyone, I feel like they could probably take this to the next step for all of the like character drama as well as character ASMRs that they've already been doing, as it would actually give people an even more up close and personal, quite literally with Kazusa's case, since she really does like to get very close to the screen and all, interaction with all of the characters as well. So personally, I'm not the biggest Kazusa fan. I'm more of a fox girl than a cat girl person, but even then, watching through all of it, I was actually like quite surprised by how close she actually got to the actual like player, I guess our model possession. As the previous year's one, you really didn't get any of that level of interaction, to be honest. Like, I kind of do like how they do these VR experience things for the event, just cause like it really puts you into the setting a bit more, and that in a way gives you more of a scale of like the rooms as well as the size of everything within the game itself, and I do find that to be quite interesting. Also, I do really like the design of the area itself, because the entrance to the place basically looks like this, which it just looks like somebody made a Stan account, or I guess a Stan website in the early 90s on Angel Fire or something, with the way she's just plastered all over like that. So I actually do like how surreal that actually looks. Like, it actually does feel like something you would see like in an anime where like the person goes into another person's house and they just see themselves lining the person's walls, and the person's a stalker or something. Really like how funny it looks. So thumbs up on the decor this time around. I guess it being in the building itself rather than in the main hall for the exhibition basically allowed them to play a lot more with how they designed the wallpapering for it, and I feel like that was very well done. The only thing I hope they would do for the future VR experiences is I hope that they actually find a more efficient way to do the queuing system for it, because the way that it works is that once you balloted for the ticket, you then got an email a few days later telling you to ballot for the VR experience as well if you wanted it. So you had to ballot for it beforehand, or you just wouldn't be able to get it. If you missed the frame, you just basically didn't get to experience the VR experience at all, so that's a little rough. Thankfully for me, even though I missed the first time around, they did do a rerun of it for like the limited like remaining tickets for it, so I did manage to get the VR experience thing at the end. But yeah, it super sucks that if you miss it out for one reason or another, you just can't go for it at all. And I hope that they find a better way to do it in the next time around. Maybe do the same thing as like with the store or with the photo taking experience, where it's just a thing that you scan a code online and then you just do it on the day itself. Also, aside from that, there's the giant balloon Kurokage, you know, the funny boss. I think he's also in the global version at this point. Unfortunately, all the ones from last year were gone this time around, including the giant Charino statue. Like, those I really like, and I really wish they would have made a comeback budget for those, but it really felt like because of the fact that they had a lot less space to work with, this balloon exhibits, which, you know, it's really just a thing that you would look at for maybe like 5 minutes and then go on to do something else. They decided that those were probably the things that they wanted to remove first, probably due to the fact that it takes a lot of effort for the lowest payoff, even though it looks really cool when you see it on the video or on the thumbnail. That said, for the Kurokage one, it looked really great though, especially with all the red glow that they had on the balloon as well as on the pillars and the light that they had set up. Especially when the light goes out and you just see the sickly red just like gleaming through everything else in the darkness. It actually looked really, really sick, and especially for his second tail. So second tail makes it sound very sus, but no, like literally he has 2 tails, that's what I'm saying. Okay, we're not making some like furry joke here or something. No, it really is just that. Lastly, in terms of the exhibits, there was also the cosplay stage with some of the official cosplayers, which some of you might have seen on Twitter, them mentioning that they will be cosplaying at an event. Would sometimes go up for photo taking sessions so you can just take pictures and all of that. But the thing with that is that the cosplayers themselves would sometimes just make rounds around the event space itself and just pose, and you could just take pictures with them in other spots within it as well, like when they went and like played around the mascots or like just stood in other positions to take pictures together. So the stage itself felt a little redundant, I guess. In a way, maybe you could say that it made it easy to gather people to a specific spot when they wanted them to like shift the crowds around to ensure that people had space to walk around. Also, aside from that, they did have standees for every single name character that has appeared across the game's history till now, even all of the unreleased ones. So yeah, that's quite an unbelievable number of them. I think they mentioned like somewhere around 160 plus. Like every single named character that has not released and all the released students, every single one of them basically had a life-size standee there as well. So that was really cool to see, and to see them all in scale really put into perspective how big some of them were. Like there was Akemi there, and she's just like, yeah, I guess for the people who like the Dormy Mummy thing, it's like, here you go. She's just probably taller than like almost everyone in the venue, I get a feeling. And you also had some that actually, like, when put into perspective how big they were, like even like Uwe, for example, it kind of made me feel a little short, because some of them actually are taller than me, especially like in Japan, where everybody is just on average very short, and houses are made a lot smaller as well to accommodate short people like myself instead. It's a little bit like the Shire if you think about it from Lord of the Rings, except Asian instead, I suppose. But as a result, some of the character standees really did make me feel very short, because of the fact that I just went to the event and I was like, oh wait, she's taller than me, god damn it! And then just reminded me how tall some of them were and how short people in Japan on average were, when like other people were like telling me like, nah man, that's fine, 165 centimeters, that's not that tall, that sounds average. And I'm just like, shit, I'm actually outing my height to the people who are actually watching this video right now, god damn it. But yeah, that's how it ended up, it seemed. Adding on to that is also the fact that they added more 3D models for some of the students as well for the greeting booths, the ones where you basically have these small rectangular booths where you just have the 3D model inside just greeting you and saying hi and like talking about the event and all of that. Because of how many there were, you really could just take your time and just sit around and watch the individual scenes for each of them as well. I think each one typically lasts for a few minutes thereabout, and each individual booth rotates through 3 different students. So overall, you can actually spend quite a fair bit of time just sitting around watching all of this, and there are people who actually do like gather around the booth and just watch it on video, like recorded as well. Especially with some of them, it was actually kind of interesting to see like how hyperactive the movement is, which then goes on to like how much effort goes into the modeling for it, because you really do have characters like Koyuki as well as like Michiru who just move so much all the time. Like they actually look like they might actually have ADHD or something, which is why they constantly are bopping and moving around when they talk. Either way, it was interesting to see the difference in the ways that they model all of the characters, as well as their speech and mannerism as well. I also feel quite thankful that I actually did bring the safari chair around again. Like at this point, I feel like there is no major event that I would go to without a safari chair, because it's just that useful. Like just being able to sit on a very small, like easily deployable, easily packable chair that you can use anywhere, so that you don't really have to sit on the floor, is actually quite convenient, and it does actually help with resting the legs as well, since at times it might feel a bit weird to just sit on the floor in the middle of nowhere, but at least with the chair, you can basically just deploy it, and the sitting posture itself is a lot more comfortable. So yeah, at this point, I don't even know if there's any like major event I'll ever go to a game without one. But overall, I did find it to be really fun, and I was kind of glad that they did do something different with it, in the sense of all the different activities, the ways that they improved on some of the things that they had done before to try and give it a unique twist as well. The balloon statue things was kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, it does feel like they actually did add in enough things, and the logistics was done well enough that that this time around, it didn't feel like there were any points where I felt very stressed because of the conditions that I was put in while waiting around as well. So even though I woke up really early and I was there for 13 hours, it actually felt like time passed really quick. Like by the time I got to 5 p.m, I was just like, shit, the day is already almost over. It felt almost unreal how fast it moved. And with a lot of the stuff, it's like, even though I want to try and show it through these videos as well, like through the clips of like, oh, this is what the 3D models, the movement and all that looks like, this is what the event games were like, it's very hard to explain, especially when it comes to like the DJ booth lives, for example. I'm sure those of you who have gone for live performances for like just music in general, especially for metal and like electronic, you would probably agree with me, but like there's a vibe to the way the music reverberates, especially when you're at the location, and how it like, this is gonna sound so fucking corny, but like the way it reverbs with the soul, that it just feel all the heart, I guess, especially with the drums and the bass, that just gives it a different impact. And even with the huge like panel arts and all of that, it's a lot harder to explain how interesting the clarity as well as the scale of it actually just adds to how much better it makes it look as well. So yeah, overall, in spite of the fact that the event was smaller and also a little apprehensive at the start, enjoyed it fully. Have some complaints and mention them throughout the video, but overall I did enjoy it quite a fair bit. That said, as to what they're gonna announce at the end of day 3, I'm gonna head out to day 3 at 5 AM again, so that wasn't supposed to happen.
My style is ridiculous.
This is the band for day 3. As you can see, it's color coded to blue so that the staff can easily tell apart which day's band it is. If I'm not mistaken, which I don't have the second day's one since I didn't manage to attend, but looking at what others have, I think the second day's band should be purple instead. This is the pamphlet for day 3. It's pretty much identical to day 1's pamphlet, like all of the details are the same inside, right down to the fact that they have the itinerary for all 3 days in here, in spite of the fact that by day 3 you don't really need day 1 and 2's itinerary anymore. So I don't know why they even really put that in, but I guess it's more of just them wanting to minimize costs by ensuring that the only thing that actually did get reprinted or edited between them is just the day 3 over here instead. These are the 2 stickers for day 3. As you can see, they actually gave 2 completely different designs instead, so they really did keep up to the whole saying that they were gonna give different stickers for each of the day for the rewards. And the questions actually were different as well. As for the, I feel like the third day's questions were actually a fair bit easier than the first day's. Like, I feel like with the first day's questions, I actually spent more time actually looking within the game to try to find the answers, but with day 3's, it was really a lot easier to just answer everything based off what I already knew. So maybe just a little bit of bias in what I know about the game, but it certainly did feel easier, and I feel like overall they did make things a little easier or better balance overall for day 3. But yeah, as for the announcements that they made live at the end of both Saturday and Sunday for the last 3 hours, where they did the special live stream segment where they announced a lot of in-game as well as out-of-game events, I'm not gonna spoil that for the people who are still interested in it. Frankly, by the time this video comes out, it's probably a week or more since the event has passed, so you probably have already watched it if you're interested. But for the people who are interested and haven't really had the time till now, I'll just try to leave it out for now so that they can still get the experience of the hype if they're planning to watch it with some friends and that's why they're waiting or something. But I will say a few things. Hopefully it doesn't spoil anything. If not, you can just skip this part of the video, to be honest. But number 1, for the last day, the third day, the announcement, I think with how hyped people were, it made me go deaf, I think, twice when they were announcing characters. And 2, frankly, I'm starting to feel like there might be actually some level of truth to the whole Time Wizard thing, because this is the second time that like a massive coincidence, I mean a totally planned space-time continuum jumping thing happened. That would mean I'm really old, since I think you have to be above 30 to become a wizard according to Japanese law, so look, we don't need to think about that right now. That said, I do have some spares for some of the things that I actually got, like with the postcards, for example, that I won, as well as with the other cards as well. And for some of the other things like the Gachapon thing, I did have a dupe as well. So if you're interested, I'll probably give out some of it. I'm not gonna do it here this time around. I feel like last year doing it through the video itself was a bit of a mistake because of the logistical difficulty of having like 20-30 people just all contact me separately and trying to figure out who gets what based off like timing, and then like figure out who to do what with. So we're gonna do all of it through the Discord, with the Discord giveaway bot that we have going on, so that it'll be a lot easier to keep track of who gets what and so on and so forth, and everyone can see it, as it's a more transparent style of doing it. But yeah, thank you to everyone who supports the channel once again. It's thanks to all of you, as well as everyone of you who watch the videos, that I'm able to continue making all of these videos, both about stuff like events like this, or about the industry, about console games, like all everything around the entire spectrum. So thank you all once again. I'll be heading off for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and bye-bye.